Greetings, vinyl community. This is Alexander with Wax and Wine. As I'm talking to you right now, the NFL draft just concluded yesterday. Lots of hockey and basketball playoffs. My favorite baseball team just had 17 straight games in 17 days. Finished with a W. They have that guy Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. So that felt good. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about music, and we're here to talk about wine, hopefully. So rather than talk about recent finds, which there are many since the last broadcast, I thought I would talk more about favorites, so you kind of get a better idea of who I am, what really gets my motor going, and surprisingly, what's been very consistent in my musical listening forever. And I will couple that with a favorite wine. So it'll be a little insider baseball, if you will, for the wine side, because I'll give you a good tip on just really, really delicious, punching above its weight kind of wine. And yes, it is French. So sit back, relax, and here we go. All right, so I thought I would talk about kind of the genre I'm obsessed with now, as most men with mustaches like this are. It's jazz. So it wasn't always jazz for me. In fact, it was almost always classical, indie rock, and folk music or country, some sort of kind of split there, and ska. But this was one of the first jazz CDs my dad ever gave me. He gave me this, and he gave me Stanley Turrentine's Spoiler, and that had Sunny on it, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. But this should be no surprise to many. This was a jazz CD that really got me on the hook. I thought it was so cool just from the photo alone. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Moanin'. Boy, do I wish I had an original, but whatever, that's another story. Look at that cover art. Are you kidding me? Look how serious that face is. That's wonderful. Not, in fact, a Francis Wolff photograph. After a little bit of research, we noticed that that is a Buck Hoffler photograph. Francis Wolff did so many wonderful photographs for Blue Note, you would just assume that is. But regardless, from just the cover art alone, it fits the catalog. This is a 1958 album. From CD to this 1990s press that I found at a Portland record store, Portland, Oregon. This album's unbelievable. You have a great lineup in Bobby Timmons on the piano, who's responsible for the track Moanin'. Jimmy Merritt on bass. We have Lee Morgan trumpeting so hard, just blistering hard bop. Who else do I have on there? Benny Golson. Benny Golson writes the majority of the tracks on here, and of course bolstered by Mr. Art Blakey. This is just fantastic music. I really, really love Moanin'. I think that is kind of the track. And it was a good introduction to jazz. I don't know why my dad gave me the 3 CDs he gave me, but he knew what he was doing, and I'm forever thankful. And ever since then, I've, of course, been looking for an original of this, but I'm just so happy I have a few different iterations, and they all get spun quite frequently. If you're not familiar with that record, I'm sure you've heard Moanin'. As much as Golson writes the majority of the works on there, Bobby Timmons has 2 of my favorite jazz tracks in Dat Dare and Moanin'. Both of those are brilliant. So if you're not familiar, maybe a good jumping off point for jazz. But this is a record that I just truly love to spin. Again, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Moanin'. For my second choice, I wanted to kind of go with something that, again, has been very consistent in my life. This is growing up in a household where my mother was a ballet dancer and my father was a musical appreciator, played instruments, and was always an enthusiast. We had classical on all the time. And one of the CDs I loved to hear was a chamber music record CD. And it featured Felix Mendelssohn. So the first work I was introduced to him by might have been the Violin Concerto. However, this piece really kind of got me, and I would play it all the time. Specifically the opening movement, but that's his octet in E-flat major. So Felix Mendelssohn lives a short life. He passes away when he's 38 years old. he also gets a lot of his work done at a very young age. So he's a child prodigy, much like a lot of these greats at their time. Born out of the Romantic period, I find his stuff just to be very clean, melodic lines. I'm really drawn, like when I listen to the violin concerto in E minor from Mendelssohn, it's pretty breathtaking. So if I were you and you're not familiar with Felix's works, I might start with the violin concerto, but the octet it's lights out for me. So the beauty here with classical music is if you're patient, you can go out and find stuff for relatively little money. This is one of my favorite records that I own. I do eventually want to find some different interpretations. I have about 2 different versions of the octet, and I'm always looking for more. But you find them for $1. And the main thing you need to know with classical, I would look for near mint. There's just too much negative space, if you will, in classical music. Too many lows are real low, and I don't need to be hearing crackles, hisses, and little ticks. That would really pull me out of the music. So I do find a lot of CD classical is totally perfect. But the beauty when you're going around to Goodwills or record stores, they frequently don't care about the category, and you can find some very nice stuff. So going back to this, I would listen to the octet in E flat major. It's unbelievable. Scored for written for 4 violins, 2 cellos, and 2 violas. If that opening movement doesn't get you, hopefully the scherzo will, but as you just kind of move through the 4 parts, it's beautiful, self-contained, and gorgeous. And the guy wrote it when he was 16 years old. Unbelievable. So again, if you haven't heard it, go out there, get yourself a copy. All right, another favorite record of mine. This is my 4th album. Now, there's many more than the 5 that I'm going to just show, but this is for brevity's sake. This next album was a big one when I got my first car. So it was a CD I had, this and Headhunters, and I would just kind of alternate and blast both of them at uncomfortably loud volume, very, very high volume, to share, of course, with passersby and beautiful young ladies on the road, just because I was cool and I had a car. Yeah, that's right. Anywho, we have Taj Mahal, self-titled Taj Mahal. So I'm a novice to this category, still to this day. I find myself gravitating towards Big Bill Brunzi. I just love those works. I love kind of that folky blues element. But this album, obviously, you know Muddy Waters, you know some of these guys, B.B. King, yada yada. But this album for me, it blew me away. Leavin' Trunk, I don't think there could be a cooler song than that. Statesboro, Georgia, that is. Statesboro Blues, that's a cool one. You just kind of keep moving through, and by the time we're in Dive and Duck, I'm all in on this guy. If this is what the blues is, sign me up. Turns out it's not. It's its own little kind of blend on the blues. Taj Mahal albums, the best. Aside from this record, the rest of them are pretty affordable, and they all rock. I like the blend of kind of other music that's going on, right? There's like some sort of not in this album, but in other albums, there's some island influence. There's just very upbeat, very positive stuff. So Taj Mahal resonates for me very well, but this album, the 1967 release on Columbia, where he's photoed in Los Angeles, that house no longer exists on the photograph, and those wonderful illustrations or whatever, this like psychedelic kind of Disney-like bird song that he's doing right there as he's serenading them on the lawn. I'm pretty sure those don't exist anymore either. But needless to say, this album is awesome. Holds a special place in my heart. I spin it all the time. When I just need a little boost, you got to go back to the ones that really kind of get it done for you. And this album absolutely is so cool. So if you haven't heard it, give it a whirl, and report back. Tell me what you think, because it's one of my favorites. So maybe it's one of yours too. Who knows? This record, I'm just going to give you a quick background on the album. And then if you're not familiar with the band, and I hope that you'll take my recommendation and listen to it, I would say that there's some stuff that is kind of consistent with the rest of their work, but then kind of it's not an outlier, but there's a lot of material that for me resonates that might not be consistent with how the band is, especially if you see them live. The number of times that I have, they bring a lot of energy, and some of these songs are more like beautiful and plaintive and a little bit pared down. So, without further ado, the New Jersey trio, Yola Tango. And that is, and then nothing turned itself inside out. So, cool little scene here, right? Looks like someone's getting beamed up to space in a Hoboken suburb. I've never been to Hoboken, New Jersey. I hope to go. I hope to see them at Maxwell's. Great record. I got this back in the day when it first came out on CD at Amoeba. Amoeba? That's not true. At Tower Records, even worse. No, Amoeba's awesome. Tower Records is even awesome, but it's gone. So went out to Tower Records. My dad drove me there and picked it up. Loved it. Super cool music. Again, some of my favorite tracks. You Can Have It All. Madeline. The one that I think everyone will like and is more consistent with the band would be Cherry Chapstick. I think that song is phenomenal, but that's kind of easy to get into. What else? So many other great songs. This is an album that I put on all the time, but it's just dreamy pop, super beautiful, absolutely lovely. And the wine portion of Wax and Wine, I wanted to share my favorite wine with you. So, without further ado, I have Beaujolais. So Beaujolais is a place. We're in eastern part of France. We had talked about Burgundy before. This goes right below it. Beaujolais, when we're talking about red wine, is Gamay. Gamay is Pinot adjacent, so kind of light-bodied, it is light-bodied, very similar, nice acidity, freshness to the wines. These are wines that are great kind of for all seasons. Springtime, they pair very well with fresh flavors that you would find at farmers markets or wherever you shop. And then as we go into summertime, it starts to heat up. I don't really want full-bodied reds. This is where this wine really would shine. You can throw it in the fridge, you can chill it down. It can be nice and light and refreshing with a little coolness to it. And then in the fall time, this wine is a darling as well. So it sits and works with like roast chickens and things like that. And again, is a good alternative to Pinot Noir. Fantastic, generally well priced. So for $20, I can find myself a pretty good bottle from the category. Again, I want Beaujolais. I don't want Beaujolais Nouveau. And I would spring for Beaujolais Cru, but that's now the top end, and truthfully, the top end is going to cost you $35. So this is where this category really, really kills it. It's a ton of bang for the buck. It's one of my favorite wines for its versatility and affordability. Kind of walks the line and doesn't really miss a beat, in fact. So next time you're out and you're thinking about it, just think you're going to get a lot of red fruits. It of course depends on the site and the producer, but light berry forward kind of wine. I think the best examples generally are done in concrete. They're not done in oak, so they give you a lot more purity of fruit. And then the spices that you would detect and the minerality, this is coming from the wine in its soil, and there's a real purity there coming through. So I love this wine with soft cheeses all the way to fish. Again, its versatility at the table is not to be trifled with. Really, really delicious. And it is my favorite red wine just for regularity and what I drink on that I frequently have bottles open of Beaujolais. So now you know everything about me. You know my favorite records. You know my favorite wine. So until next time, we'll discuss more, but go out there, look for some of those records if you haven't heard them. And the next time you're out shopping for a bottle of wine with your best girl or your friends, maybe spring for Beaujolais, see what you think. Or ask a sommelier. Go ahead, do your thing. All right, we'll talk to you soon, and look forward to hearing from you in the comments below.